channel. I'm your host, Nahayan and Wia. We have an outstanding show today to discuss the very future of our nation and the American people. I am honored here today to be with our fellow guests. I will start off for introducing, first and foremost, Mike Zuma. He's a political science major, an international co-major, and minor in Arabic language. At a young age, he volunteered for the Oakland County Republicans, found himself developing within the party and working for what he stands for. Mike later worked on numerous campaigns, and the most significant one was working for the third term in a row for a representative of the state of Michigan, Clint Casto, for the 39th district. He also worked with more than 6 lawyers and did over 6 political internships. Mike is interested in pursuing jobs in one of the federal agencies. His long mission goals are to work for his community and to help elect the right candidate that will work for our communities here locally, in Michigan, in the United States, and also for the persecuted minorities in the Middle East. Great to have you here, Mike.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And next we have C.L. Edwards. He's a Christian apologetic, was enrolled in seminary and also obtained an associate degree in biblical studies, and he is committed to ministering to Muslims through his local church and the parachurch ministries of callingmuslims.org and urban topics of apologetics ministries. He is of a former Muslim faith, and during the weekend of December of 2010, CL had the desire to read the Bible and confess to his true faith. Welcome to the show, CL. Glad to have you, and glad to be on with you again. And last but not least, we have our friend Darwin Giles Jr. He is an ethnic vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party and is a very practicing activist within Michigan, travels nationally too to fight for our people. Welcome to the show, Darwin.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, we have a serious crisis in our country. We have one of the most influential debates in the history of this country. You know, we are left with 2 candidates that leaves many American people very confused about who to vote for. So we are here today to shed some light, to answer some questions that, you know, you can call and ask. You can ask any of our guests here. You can ask myself, and we're actually going to have one more guest, State Representative Clint Casto will be joining us soon as well for the state of Michigan. And please call to 248-416-1300. We need you to call. We would love for you to call. We want to hear your questions. You know, we want to hear the questions of the American people that you would like to even ask the presidents, and we could broadcast this so that maybe one day, hopefully, they can answer for us. We're going to start off with Mike. My first question to you is, what makes Hillary so different from Trump as president?
First, I would like to thank you, Nahrain, for the amazing invite.
Absolutely.
Hillary. So we speak about the election and the debates that we see and all the craziness that's happening in the media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will start off saying I'm not going to choose a single candidate to pick from. At the moment, right now, I would just say that Hillary is not the best choice for our people, for our American people. I mean, I'm not defending Trump on the other side too, but then Hillary could be so different from Trump in several issues, such as Hillary has a good history of corruption. I mean, as a Secretary of State, she failed many times. The thing is, of her admitting that she's actually failing as Secretary of State, she is actually trying to run for president. That's a way bigger seat. It's one of the most important seat in the American politics, and then running for this kind of position, coming from a failing position,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she is definitely not a qualified candidate. I would think Trump will be a little more qualified. Yes, he says what he says, and then some stuff are true, some stuff are way off the line, but I would definitely say the difference between both, that they both, say things, they do things, but then now we need a real candidate that will help our people, help our American people, help our economy, help many things that deals with our foreign policies, and I think Trump would be the option at the moment, even though we see there are a lot of fights in the media against Trump, and I think there are main targets that want to just put Trump down, and I think Hillary was not the choice.
Right.
So.
Yes, and media is definitely one of them. They can either make or try to break someone.
Absolutely.
Just to shed a little more light on something that you mentioned. So just briefly, if you can talk about how did Hillary fail as Secretary of State?
I mean,
because the honest truth is a lot of American people don't even know that. Many American people, they don't even know who our vice president is. So if you can please just elaborate briefly on that.
Of course. As serving as Secretary of State, she failed to help our embassies in Benghazi, and then she was responsible, to me, I mean, and to most Americans, she is the main responsible for what happened to our people in Benghazi, and then they're responsible of killing. I mean, she did not do what she's supposed to be doing, even though she came out and she said, oh, that's all I could have done. That's all what the emails were all about, and I got nothing to hide. But then the closer we're coming to the election, we see so many evidence, so many things, so many undercovered emails. And then she claimed one day, and she said that most 90% of her emails are in the hands of the FBI and then the right agencies. And then we discovered later that only 1% to 2% of the emails that were actually published were in the hands of the FBI, and the rest were deleted completely from the server. I mean, that just leaves you off with what you think, what kind of person she is, and how we are able to give her the opportunity to be where she is right now, actually. That's one of the biggest mistakes that the American people did, actually.
I actually want to comment on that as well.
Yeah, sure, Darwin.
I think more importantly, too, we have to look at the moral issues. I look at, let's use one thing that most people still, to this day, consider the most corrupt thing you could be a part of, the most immoral. You're talking about latent full-term abortion. When you look at latent full-term abortion, for those who don't know, my hometown is Flint, Michigan. I come from a culture of corruption and abortion. So I've heard firsthand the testimonies of abortion. I come from this culture of abortion, so I know those effects last with you throughout your life. And I know for us as a country and as a nation, as lawmakers, to say that it's okay to abort a child. I mean, we fight for rights for animals, and that is a good thing. But how much more should we fight for the innocent of the unborn? I think that is one area where I would say that Hillary Clinton has failed, as you stated, because she hasn't stood up and fought for that.
They have unconstitutional rights?
I know for a fact, I've heard her personally speak out in support of Roe versus Wade. I've heard her speak out amongst several things in being pro-abortion, and I think that is just the most culture of immorality and corruption that you basically can have, not including the attacks on family, the attacks on our Second Amendment and gun rights. Benghazi is just terrible for anyone who loves their country, their people who serve in the military and even law enforcement. So right now, we need a leader that's going to be able to stand up. But most importantly, I want us to turn to our Lord and Savior. More importantly than anything, politicians can fail us, whether it's Trump or Hillary Clinton, and it's very important for us not to lose our faith and our hope in the process.
Very well said. And also leading to the next question, Darwin, where does Trump stand on the Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage? Well,
personally, from what I've heard, he will not necessarily advocate or do anything to try to overturn the decision. However, he has promised to elect or to appoint more conservative judges. So a lot could come out of that, which could change things down the road. I believe that could be the direction and should be the direction we should go in. But more importantly, I don't think he's stood up to be necessarily against same-sex marriage, and that is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. And CL, what should the government do about Islam?
It's a very good question. Right now, if you're paying attention to the media, the internet, Facebook, Twitter, it's very confusing right now. There's just so many stories coming out, so many accusations going forward. A lot of people who were set about a certain candidate are flipping now. You're having evangelical leaders making statements who have never made statements concerning political matters before are making statements about Trump and Hillary also. So this can be a very confusing time because it gets down to the matter of demonizing people, personalities, bringing up past events. And you can get into a complete flame war if you want to go at someone about their candidate, about what they did in the past and their character and their ethics. They can come back on you and say, well, your candidate did this and he said this and he did that. And you can go back and forth for hours. But I think as Christians, and I'm speaking firstly to Christians here, we need to return back to things that don't shift and change. And that
Amen,
is
brother.
biblical principles, principles of truth. We need to look at not only our principles that are rooted in the Bible, we need to look at the party platforms of these two major parties that are at the forefront, right? And we could get into third parties, but reality is the next elected president is going to either be a Democrat or a Republican, whether you like the candidate or not. When you look at these party platforms, when it comes to the issue of foreign policy and Islam, I think it becomes a little clearer and a little less muddy. Let me give you a Bible verse, 1 Peter 2:13-15. It instructs Christians, be subject to the Lord's, for the Lord's sake, to every human institution, whether it be the emperor as supreme or to the governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Again, that's 1 Peter 2:13-15.
Amen.
Government is ordained by God for God's glory, first of all. That's principle number one. Principle number two, government, whether the person in government is a moral person or an immoral person, Christian or unbeliever, they have a duty mandated by God to make the land secure, make the people of their domain secure. So that's first off. So let me give you, real quickly, a couple of points that you can think about. Talk with your friends and family. Our government needs to be truthful about the exact nature of political Islam and be truthful with the American people. So far in the last 8 years under Obama, I don't think our government, our federal government, has been very truthful to the United States people about the nature of the threat of political Islam. American citizens are not stupid. You know, we don't need Big Brother to placate us or to give us fairy tale stories and make everything sound okay. We don't need that. We don't need doublespeak. And number three, political Islam has to be looked at the same way that communism was looked at. It's a serious threat that needs to be neutralized at home and abroad.
And CL, just to piggyback on that regarding the subject of Islam, but you know, I noticed one of the candidates keeps trying to use Muslims as a tool to help them win. And you know, they're constantly using them, but then, you know, previously they've made statements against them. They've made statements against even African Americans, calling them predators. And
Super
she's even
predators.
recently made statements against Catholics, who is another Christian denomination, which she's pretty much slashed all Christianity as well. So how do you feel about these presidential candidates, and really specifically on this topic, for Hillary to constantly use minorities and a religion to help her win? I really feel that it's unfair to the American people.
Yes, the last 2 days, there's really been a lot about the subject of morals and ethic and character. There's been a lot in the social media and the news. But one of the moral characters that you should look at is when a person is double-tongued and double-minded. Now, the Bible says that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And when it comes to Hillary, we see her saying one thing in the public in front of the camera, but then WikiLeaks has released some of her emails where she's saying the exact opposite of what she will claim in public.
Right, and the American people just want to know the truth. We want to know the truth. We are tired of the constant strategizing of these corrupted politicians to use the people, families, fathers, mothers, children, you know, these college students as their tools just to help them win. And then
Yeah.
they're using us for their leverage. It's just, we're tired of it as the people. And going back to you, Mike, I know a lot of people don't like to be asked, who are you voting for? And I think that really times should change. And I think that we as the people, we need to be more open about who we're going to vote for. And, we're one big family in this country. This is all we have. This is the safest country, the greatest country in the world that's left today. And that is why we must do whatever we can to save it. And Mike, who do you think should be elected as president? No pressure.
Well, let me start off saying also that we all know in some point, since the election has started, and then we started finalizing each party's candidate, had a clue of who to vote for. And especially in this election, I've seen so many people, if they are going on social media saying, I'm going to vote for Trump, they lose many friends. I mean, people unfriend them, people don't speak to them anymore, just because simply because of the word I'm voting for what you believe in. And I think that's absolutely wrong. I mean, that's what we don't stand for, On the other hand, there are people who start friending people and start talking to people just simply because they're voting for Hillary, on the other hand. I think that you just have to make the choice and then live up your principles, what you're standing for, what you believe in. I believe in a fair game, okay? Who should be elected? My personal opinions, I'm very undecided at the beginning. My personal opinions, I should say, as of right now, would be Trump. I think Trump should be elected for many reasons, and then one of them, as Mr. Edwards mentioned, that look at the previous WikiLeaks emails. That just one thing tells you about Hillary. Yes, maybe Mr. Trump does not really operate as a politician or a fake person in front of a camera, but then just look at her, going 100% against herself, going 100% against what she believes in, and then coming the second day or the third day on the rally, look, nothing happened. She didn't even apologize for the emails.
But how is she
for the Catholic
gaining
community.
so much support?
I mean, everybody should know this. Look at CNN.
Well,
look
she
at
lost
other
Michigan. She actually lost Michigan fires in the primary. So
Right.
that is one example of her declining support, actually. But I also want to comment on what CEO stated concerning Islam. Being Flint, Michigan, again, is my hometown. And as ethnic vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party, it's my job to deal with all ethnicities and minorities. And one of the questions I always come up with, and I just talked to someone today, a very good friend who's an activist in Flint now, and the conversation of Muslims came up in the conversation. And basically, he was saying, well, Darwin, I don't want to rule all Muslims as bad people. And I agree with that statement. However, we cannot be ignorant to the ideology of Islam. And I think this is where the education really needs to take root in our country, because you're talking about an ideology, an actual system, a government that performs and acts and has certain functions that will impact our schooling, our government, our community, our homes, our family. And so we cannot be ignorant to really what is Islam. And that's very important to that. But also what you said, Mike, as well, as far as individuals voting for certain people being shamed. In certain countries, you have 80, 90% turnout far as for the voting and election cycles. That's not America. 80, 90% of our population don't go out and vote. When you go to most minority inner city areas, you have a lot of times less than 10%. I know for a fact less than 15% actually even go out and vote. So we shouldn't shame anyone for practicing and being involved in the civic duty of voting. People have lost their lives for that. However, you want to just make sure you're educated. You want to make sure that you're voting your conscience, as Senator Ted Cruz actually stated. So that is very, very important to do, and we can't lose sight of that.
Yes, and also, Darwin, leading to my next question to you, where does Trump stand on transgender bathrooms, and why do you feel that's so important in the United States?
Transgender bathrooms, we're all talking about morals, and we're talking about who's best fitted. And we're also talking about, this is a good conversation for the assault accusations and all the negatives that represent. In any way, not making a defense for Trump. But we also have our lawmakers and our politicians who are saying it's okay for a transgender person to be in a bathroom with little children. That doesn't make sense. That's completely immoral. and that is not something that our lawmakers, being that they honor God, being that they honor the parents' rights, should ever promote and advocate. So transgender bathrooms are very important when you have someone like, let's say, President Obama, who tried to actually use his position from the White House to pressure states into adopting certain legislation to force even the educational boards to support this immoral legislation. A good person that I met recently and supporting her campaign, Nikki Snyder, who's running for the Michigan School Board. I suggest you vote for her. She's a solid person, but she's standing up against any legislation to support violating the rights of parents and also God's law concerning transgender in bathrooms. I just don't get that concept. We all have a right to do what we want to do as adults. You know, we have that free will. But to violate children and to say that if I have a newborn son, you know, to say that, you know, a transgender person or even forcing other children to identify as that would be definitely wrong, and something as a parent now I would definitely be concerned about. So as far as Trump, I think he's going to be neutral from what I understand about this, when really most people look at where he said as far as transgenders, period, that you know, they can use whatever bathroom they want. That's the truth about Trump. As far as that, I don't agree with that stance. But I think he's trying to be neutral. I think that's what he's doing, and I can't speak for Trump. But I don't agree with that stance. I think we need to take a firm stance in morality and really make it very clear that we're not going to support transgender bathrooms with our children especially.
Very well said. And CL, should Christians in America forget the culture war, drop out of politics, and just concentrate on the gospel?
That's something I've heard over the last few weeks, over the last month. I don't really agree with that type of mindset. Now, re-examining the whole thing that we call the culture war, yeah, I'm with that. You always have to re-examine any idea or any strategy that you use, because if you don't, you risk doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And some people would say that's insanity. Yes, so we do need to examine how we as Christians participate in the nation of the United States of America as citizens. But we do not need to just back down, back away, forget voting, forget organizing, and just go into our churches and just, you know, we're going to have our own little enclave and we're not going to deal with the rest of society or politics.
Wow, that's powerful.
Amen.
That's powerful, brother. I just got to.
But let me tell you why. Because if you go hide inside your church and say we're just going to have our little church meeting and we're not going to deal with the society is not going to leave you alone. They're going to come kick down the doors of the church. It's you look through history and it's always happened. Look at our Christian ancestors. When the apostles started spreading out from Jerusalem across Greco-Roman world to spread the gospel, the government did not leave them alone. All those apostles, except for John, were martyred. They were killed by the government. Our Lord, Jesus Christ himself, was killed by the government. So we should take a lesson from Christians from times past. Even with during the times of the Reformation, when Christians simply wanted to translate the Bible from Latin into English, you had Christians martyred, set on fire on poles by the government, by the state. So you have to keep that in mind. You may not want to get involved in this. It may seem so muddy, it may seem so cruddy, it may seem so corrupt, and it is. But you cannot just go into a hole and hide. That's not going to work.
Have to be salt and light.
Amen. Salt and light. We have a mandate to go out here and make disciples. We have to make disciples in every aspect and field of this society, and that includes politics.
Preach,
Absolutely. Very well said.
Shake your hand right there, man.
And we're actually going to take a caller. If you could please put him through. Caller, what's your question?
Hello?
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
You can
Do you
go
hear
ahead with
me?
your question. Good evening.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi for everybody.
Hello.
I'm confused a little bit about this election and about Hillary and about everybody. My mind is small little bit. About Hillary and this election and the Trump. How Hillary, she says she created Al-Qaeda, and now they support Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra in Syria, they killed the civilian, and in and now they support Saudi Arabia. Even Saudi Arabia, if they find anybody, they have a cross or they have the Bible, they cut his neck, front everybody in the street, same Daesh what they do it. And until now, they support Saudi Arabia, and Hillary, she never say any something for what happened about the human rights in Saudi Arabia. And Trump, he say we charge him money. Just the mind for money, not for the human, what happened with him. What the Daesh is doing in Syria and Iraq, same what Saudi Arabia is doing there. And Hillary, she proud, she said, we created Al-Qaeda, and now Obama and the whole system to support Al-Nusra from Al-Qaeda. So who makes September 11? Mickey Mouse or Tom and Jerry? Who make it? Somebody tell me, who make who? They make us for very crazy. We couldn't trust this government now.
Right.
So tell us really the truth. Now you say go file case to go to follow Saudi Arabia to take money. Okay. Now you say no, you couldn't do it. So then you support Al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda in Syria and Iraq. And now yesterday Obama, they won't give him a safety line to go outside from Iraq without court, without nothing. After when they kill all the Yazidi and all the poor people, is that the human? As that's what the cross and what the Bible they say, what Obama he say. He believed Bible, he believed the Jesus, as that the Jesus he tell him to put the truth out, down his shoes for all the innocents, what is died from Daesh and the Wahhabi. Is that real? Isn't that shame for the superpower in America now what we see it?
Right, sir. So your question for all of
My
us
question,
basically
is that real?
Who's creating, Al Qaeda, ISIS, from all the money that's being accepted? So obviously someone has a personal political interest for themselves, for their campaign and all of their agendas. So basically the supporting of Saudi Arabia, Al Qaeda, and also claiming to be in support of human rights when evidently none of these countries in the Gulf are really respecting humanity nor respecting women's rights. So I definitely feel your frustration. Thank you so much for your call. Anybody want to take his question?
I can say this has been one of the most vain and vile elections I think I've ever experienced. And more importantly, when you speak on the Middle East, and this hasn't come up in much of the debates, but I can't wait for it to come up, is a lot of the donations to the Hillary Foundation, the Clinton Foundation. This is a big, important factor because when we talk about assaults and women's rights, look at the countries who the Clintons accept money from. They enslave women. Mm-hmm. They don't allow women to drive or be educated. I mean, you all would even know, being many of your roots is from the Middle East. I mean, you were in Iran, you were born in Iraq. Mm-hmm. So how hypocritical can we be as a country and as especially politicians to stone one person for what they've done or accusations of what they've done wrong when we know for a fact how things are in Saudi Arabia. We know for a fact how things are in Northern Africa. Mm-hmm. We know for a fact how things are throughout the Middle East. So we cannot be hypocritical in that fact, because I don't believe God will allow that to go unjudged. But that's very, very good points that the caller brought up, actually. Mm-hmm.
Yes, very well said. And, he was mentioning, so who's creating ISIS, who created Al-Qaeda. Being from, originally from outside of the United States, even though I'm proud to be a Syrian American, U.S. citizen. However, a lot of the international communities, they believe that ISIS is a creation of the West to fulfill their foreign policies and their agendas. And that is, a question that is even being asked throughout the entire Middle East, especially by the Christian community, because another thing also is I haven't once heard from any of the presidential candidates of really bolding the fact of we have an ancient Christian community in the Middle East, and
agree.
why isn't anybody supporting them?
Yes.
I constantly hear them, we need to constantly help and fund, the certain rebel groups, the Arab Islamic groups, and constantly fund and arm the Kurdish Islamic groups, the same people who disarmed the Christians and the Yazidis 2 weeks prior to the ISIS invasion. So really, I feel that they're truly not fully covering the main issue that's causing, that really created this whole turmoil.
You absolutely took the words right out of my mouth, Naren, because if you notice during the debates, arming the Kurds has come up so much. And I've learned a lot from you in that aspect, Naren, and all the time we spent in activism throughout the state of Michigan, and knowing that the Iraqi Christian ancient people there have been neglected. They've been completely ignored. They have not had the proper support. Why are we not being the alliance that we need? And when we speak on ISIS being created of the West, from whose values or from what faction of government has helped create the West? Is it under the Obama administration? Because I can assure when we brung out our troops from Iraq and even pulling out troops from Afghanistan, as Trump stated, and this is a true fact, that created a vacuum, as has been throughout the debates, which created this. So I could see how that could be seen as deliberate. And this is one where a lot of my libertarian friends bring up where they don't want war in the Middle East or anywhere else because we fund those wars, we intervene with governments, we make decisions like in Iraq, where we pull out our troops, and it creates just another problem that just keeps going down, and our money, the American lives are lost.
Right.
But I cannot say more that we need to support the Assyrian Christians in that area, and we shall not forget about them.
Thank you. And also, we have a caller on the phone. I believe his name is Mahmoud. Welcome to the show, Mahmoud. What is your question?
Hi again. I'm what say again, please, if you let me, you and with your beautiful group, we need to know what the reaction from Hillary Clinton and Trump, what Saudi Arabia the last week before 3 days, they go in the funeral house in Yemen and they kill 700 people, innocent, and with the poor kids in the funeral. They kill him. Even now we not hear any point from Hillary and Trump about that because the oil money from Saudi Arabia, they'll shut the mouth of him. Even Obama, all what they say, we feel sorry. The same minute they send for him a new missile, a new rocket, a new plane, a new technique to kill the poor Yemen people. And in the end, maybe you can pray for him, the God blessing him, because what to do it, and Trump, he said, we take money from Saudi Arabia to support him, and the other side, he and Hillary, they say we give $36 billion for Israel. For why you take the money from the tax people to give it for Israel? And still the word everywhere, I not understand. Somebody explaining for me that. You kill innocents here, and you give money here to kill more innocents.
Right, and Mahmoud, thank you so much.
And where is the God?
Thank you so much for your question. We definitely hear, your cry and your frustration. Mahmoud was mentioning Saudi Arabia has been constantly bombing Yemen. And, I feel like a lot of the Western foreign policies are so focused on what's happening in Syria, when actually, in fact, there's a huge similar crisis in Yemen where, as he said, 700,000 people, families and children, are being killed by Saudi Arabia, and the only reason why, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and its fellow coalition forces haven't went in is probably because Saudi Arabia is an ally of the United States, which is really hard to take in. How do you feel about Mahmoud's frustration?
I can relate to his frustration, but the thing that I thought about while he was speaking was I went back to Hillary and the new batch of hidden emails that have just come out through WikiLeaks. In some of her emails, she is critical of Saudi Arabia, even though she took, $24 million from Saudi Arabia for her the Clinton Foundation. She's critical of Saudi Arabia and Qatar as being sponsors of state terrorism. And I find that just so odd. That goes back to the comment that I made earlier about this person is a very double-minded person. They say one thing when there's a camera in front of their face, and then they say something completely different to other people when they think they're in private, when she's on a private email server.
Right.
And for me, I'm speaking for me, and I'm speaking for anybody, other guests, and I'm not speaking for any organizations that I'm affiliated with or churches that I've been affiliated with, me personally. I can't deal with a person like that. I can't deal with a person who will say anything or support anything just to get a seat of power. And she seems like the type of person who is, that's her personality. Now, I'm not excusing Trump and his flaws either, because Trump is a very ambitious person. He likes money and he likes power as well.
Yeah, and he definitely has flaws that are very evident.
Yes.
I would have an insight. He said Trump loves money and power. I mean, they both do, but then you got to remember that how Hillary is being actually bought from the Middle East.
That is true. Specifically
from Saudi Arabia and other Qatar, and Qatar just gave her, $4 to $5 million just out of nowhere. You can see that though these countries are buying Hillary. With that being said, we are in a serious danger. Those countries you don't mess with, you don't tolerate what they do in terms of how Saudi Arabia is bombing Yemen constantly for its special interest. Killing innocent people, like the caller, Mr. Mahmoud said, killing 700 people, innocent people, just, again, in the name of, okay, those are rebels, you know what I mean? They have a special interest they're serving, and and soon enough, you'll hear, and I hope we don't get to that point, but that special interest, it might hit us here in the U.S. You never know, next thing, when she becomes a president, I hope now, but if she becomes a president, next thing you know, Saudi Arabia wanted to do something in the U.S. that changes the U.S. completely.
But we've already seen that happen.
Slowly,
With
yes.
the Justa bill,
See,
the allowing lawsuits against Saudi Arabia for
Exactly.
9/11 sponsors. What did Saudi Arabia say? They said, we will not tolerate that. If you pass this bill, they threaten the United States financially. And Obama backed down.
And that's
obviously.
a major difference between Trump and Hillary. People should understand too, that maybe he can say whatever he wants to say. Maybe he, as bad as he sounds like in certain things, he's at least not being bought by somebody or by a country that has a full history of destroying other countries. And then just look at the 2003 war with Iraq. Look at Saudi Arabia. It was with Iraq before the war. Next thing you know, we had nothing to do with it. You can see how they can flip-flop between things and how bad or dangerous Saudi Arabia could be, or Qatar, or the neighboring countries like Bahrain, etc.
Mike, you make a very good point. I have a political mentor, former National Committeeman Dave Ijema, and he always speaks on leadership having the grit, the courage and the stamina to stand up and be driven by conviction versus being corrupted. What you're speaking on, when individuals can buy individuals, that's corruption. And so what you have to understand, I think absolutely you're right. We do need a different type personality who will not prostitute themselves, so to speak. And that is true. And I think you just can't, you couldn't have said it any better. When you have our politicians who will sell away their influence and even use their political positions to benefit themselves financially, we're in a lot of trouble under those type of leaderships. I mean, the Bible is very clear. When the righteous is in power, the people rejoice. When the unrighteous is in authority, the people mourn. And it's a lot of people suffering because of those countries who have abused and oppressed, but yet they're able to influence powerful nations such as the United States and even some of their lawmakers, because that's exactly what they're doing. When you can buy Hillary Clinton or any politician, you're influencing the United States.
Absolutely, very well said. And I definitely did hear it, special interest in quite a few of the speeches and the comments that were being made during the debates. But before...
I just want to make a point
and
here.
then we'll take a quick break.
By mentioning Saudi Arabia and those countries, again, I'm not mentioning the religion itself or Muslims in general. I mean, coming from, I was born and raised in Iraq, I mean, for 10 years. Coming from neighbors, friends, and even people that I'm still in contact with today, and some people in here and some professors in college, even though, come from Muslim faith. I mean, not all Muslims are bad, of course, and then some people translate faith differently, even in our churches or in Catholics or different, religion. To me, judging one religion just because of what happens outside the country itself, I really don't think that Saudi Arabia speaks in the name of Islam personally. I think that they have way beyond this agenda. They pass that. They just use Islam to get to where they want, because those people are in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain, are trained to follow a certain religion. They're trained to say it's okay, for certain things. So I think that there are many issues that follows just a religion or a faith. There are more of people getting trained to do what the leader says to do or what the faith tell them to do, and that's what we feel. I mean, one of my great professors, his name's Saeed Khan. I have a class with him right now at Wayne State University, and we're Islamic empires. Since the beginning of Islam faith, the number of people followed the leader just because simply it says what they had to do. They, by the sword, they said, okay, we got to do A, B, C, and everybody follow it just because they're afraid of. Same thing in Saudi Arabia. Everybody afraid of getting assassinated or killed or slaughtered in the streets in the name of a faith, and so therefore they do whatever they were raised to do or what they were supposed to do.
And I think Jesus said it best. You judge a tree by the fruit it bears.
Yes, exactly.
So that's very important for us to know that. And also look at the fact that if you have any Muslim or anybody tied to any particular ideology that will support whether it's Sharia law or Islamic law, which has a whole host of oppressive and evil works within, that's where you have the true conflict. So I absolutely agree. You have to make sure that you judge a tree by the fruit it bears.
I agree with you, but on the other hand, too, my experiences with those people, I see that they not only, the more educated of them, not only they don't do things that doesn't make no sense, sort of, like ISIS, for example, beheading people for the name of faith, but I think, to me, people that I know personally that if I follow a certain faith do not represent Islam as a whole, or not only Islam, I'm talking faith in general as a whole.
And Mike, I understand your point. A lot of people are Muslim by label, and there's also a lot of people who are Christian by label. And some people claim they're the strongest, most devout Christians, but really they're not following anything to do with their Christianity or their religion or what the Bible teaches us to do. And just like Muslims, there are many people who are Muslim by label, and I know quite a few of them, and they're not doing anything close to what radical Muslims are doing. And they're wonderful priest that I work very closely with said a really important description of it that really touched my heart, left an imprint on my mind, is that he said these are Christianized Muslims. And it truly reminds me of the Muslims in Iraq, the ones that are standing with us and who stood with us, and many of them were killed. Those are the Muslims that lived side by side with Christians for so long, and they don't let the radicalism take over their mind and they actually, they're Christianized Muslims. And that's truly what those great Muslims are. They're simply Christianized Muslims. And we're going to take a quick break. We really would love for you to call. If you can also visit the Trinity Channel website. It's www.trinitychannel.com, and we would love to hear from you and hear your questions regarding the presidential debate, and any other questions you have for our guests. If you can call into 248-416-1300, and we will be right back after a short break. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned.
ABM Security is in need of your help. The work we do has attracted a lot of opposition that has repeatedly wished us harm, and the measures we had originally taken aren't as effective as we once thought. We need an upgrade to our security system to be more up-to-date to today's standards, and reinforced windows along with thicker doors and locks to make breaking them down a lot more difficult. This isn't an issue anyone likes to talk about, but needs to be addressed. We want to protect our ministry and its employees from serious harm that could be closer than we know. But to do that, we need your support and partnership to make that happen. To donate, call the numbers on your screen, or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Live English debate on Monday, October 17th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time between Shabir Ali versus Tony Costa. The topic will be, was Muhammad a prophet of God? Was Paul a disciple of Jesus? If you have any questions, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Hello friends, this is Tony Goulet, and it is a blessing to be here on ABN and the Trinity channel. As you know, ABN does vital work. What other channel can you turn to watch international apologetics marathons that are broadcast through satellite to the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, North Africa, parts of the US, parts of Canada, and streaming live online through high-speed internet, Facebook, and Twitter? We've asked numerous people throughout these shows this week that we have done, what other channel can you turn to? There is not another channel that you can turn to watch shows like these. We are correct. We're not politically correct. We do debates about what is true. And there are many man-made religions out there who claim to have the truth. People are basing their eternal salvation on what they think is true. But what sets Christianity apart from the man-made religions out there is that Christianity is a reasonable faith based on evidence. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15 commands Christians to always be ready to give a defense or a reason for the hope that lies within us. So these marathons are just an example of what all of us should be doing, regardless of where we are located throughout the world. It is our job as Christians to preach and proclaim the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and defend the historic Christian faith. We are called to do that in our everyday lives, and ABN and Trinity does that during every single International Apologetics Marathon. We share the gospel and we defend the faith. So please continue to support ABN and the Trinity channel so these shows can continue to reach the lost and equip the found.
Praise the Lord, North Carolina. I'm your native son, Pastor Joseph here, inviting you to watch the one TV channel they don't want you to know about, the Trinity channel, channel 14.6, WHKY on digital antenna. Finally, the truth about ISIS, terrorism, and the religion of Islam from a biblical Christian perspective. You'll find no political correctness here, just the truth, plain and simple. Scholars, Christian apologists, and former Muslims from around the world all exposing the religion of Islam as the root of so much of the chaos we find our world in today, while at the same time proclaiming Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, as the one and only solution. If you can't get channel 14.6, don't worry. You can watch us live 24/7 at www.trinitychannel.com. Remember the Trinity channel, the voice of truth crying out in a desert of political correctness.
Trinity channel is now publicly streaming on Roku. There is no need for a code anymore, and through Roku, you can watch us 24/7 on your TV. You can find us through two ways on Roku. The first way is through the streaming channel category. The second way is by searching for Trinity channel in your search bar. For more information, please call the numbers at your screen.
If you'd like to support ABN's ministry, you can give us a call at 248-416-1300, or you can visit our website at www.abnsat.com. ABN appreciates your support and donations.
Praise the Lord, North Carolina. I'm your native son, Pastor Joseph here, inviting you to watch the one TV channel they don't want you to know about, the Trinity channel, channel 14.6, WHKY on digital antenna. Finally, the truth about ISIS, terrorism, and the religion of Islam from a biblical Christian perspective. You'll find no political correctness here, just the truth, plain and simple. Scholars, Christian apologists, and former Muslims from around the world all exposing the religion of Islam as the root of so much of the chaos we find our world in today, while at the same time proclaiming Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, as the one and only solution. If you can't get channel 14.6, don't worry. You can watch us live 24/7 at www.trinitychannel.com. Remember the Trinity channel, the voice of truth, crying out in a desert of political correctness.
Welcome back to the Trinity channel. I'm your host, Nahan and Wia, and we have had a wonderful show so far discussing some extremely important values for the American people regarding this election that will truly be influential, not only in the entire country, but really will influence the entire world. And I still have my guest here, Mike Zuma, who is really passionate about this subject, very well involved, and we will discuss some questions further. And I really encourage our viewers to call in 248-416-1300. We want to hear your cries, your questions. We had amazing callers earlier, really voicing their passion and their questions for our guests. And this leads me to my next question, Mike. You know, this video that has been roaming the internet, the media, I mean, it has been played everywhere. And, you know, even a lot of women are very confused about it. They're confused if they should change their mind about this particular presidential candidate, or if it really doesn't smear his character and truly was just something stupid that he said and that he regrets. How do you feel about that video with the sound that is being shared regarding what presidential candidate Donald Trump said about women that truly is inappropriate for anyone to say, especially a man?
I mean, the video was aired on the some national TVs. I mean, I would say, if not all, a big majority of Americans saw the video, heard it. Yes, it's offensive for women. I gotta agree with that. It's not true for a candidate to say such a that, but he said that way prior before the the election. That's back 2005. Plus, it's a backstage. I mean, everybody between them and themselves say things, but again, that does not justify what he said. I'm not justifying what he said is fine. No, it's not fine. It's absolutely wrong. But then you come back and try to compare and contrast both of them, right? You would say, okay, Trump said such a thing, and then you would look at the other hand and say Hillary, right? Hillary said many things against herself right now. She said she's against gays and lesbian right of marriage. I look at her right now how she's defeating it with her own party. That's one flag. Other flags, look at the Clinton Foundation donations. She always denies that she's getting money from different countries such as Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and then look at her right now saying, oh, we had nothing to do with that. So you look at these factors, and then you try to see. Yes, they both say certain things, but then you gotta say, you can't just say Trump said that about women and then just disregard and then choose a candidate based on that video only. But you gotta look. Plus, as far as I know from Fox News too, there are about 480,000 people already cast their vote. They already sent the absentee. So I mean, how effective could that video be versus look at what right now the WikiLeaks emails that they just were published not long ago. So you come and see that people cannot just say, okay, well, we're not going to vote for Trump or change 100%, or women especially change. But look at Hillary. I don't think so Hillary is anyway with women. I don't think so she is in any way with the rights of women. She just going against herself in both ways, you know?
Right, absolutely. And, you know, it's just playing devil's advocate. As the American people, this is definitely one of the most confusing elections that we have ever came across, at least in my adulthood. And, you know, we just, at the end of the day, we want a leader. We don't want a boss. We don't want another corrupted politician. We want a leader who will be able to handle the issues we face today. And today, we are facing a national crisis issue, an issue that is spreading throughout the entire world, that is spreading truly like cancer, that has affected countries like France, countries like England, and ruined the entire Middle East. And it is something that we need an aggressive president, whether Donald Trump will win, whether Hillary Clinton will win. They really need to take a stand against an issue that is creating a domino effect, and truly our foreign policies, the American foreign policies being one of the most ruined, corrupted foreign policies in the world that has destroyed millions of lives. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed. Millions of people are purged, including my native people in Iraq and Syria and similar surrounding areas. This is something we can never take back. I want the American people to make a decision, to really think about this decision. This isn't a decision to vote the most popular, the nicest, the sweetest, the person that's smiling the best, the person that is saying the things that you would love to hear. You have to see actions. And truly, truly, I personally am tired of the typical American politician that really just says everything, and it's so great. You know, they're giving you the Kool-Aid, but their actions speak otherwise.
See, it's funny you brought the fact that, yes, we do need a true leader. We do need somebody that will protect us from the outside world, such as ISIS. Those people are very effective. They're growing every single day. There are many things. I just want to put some stuff on the spotlight of the people, tell them choose what candidate to go with. I don't want to just force one candidate towards the people, but I will tell them you make the right choice. I will say a couple points, and you can, you know, these are facts that we cannot deny. These are platforms that we can't really dismiss. These are things that they are on the websites, on their both websites, on their media. I mean, economic stability. Okay, you got Donald Trump is a businessman, right? He's not a politician. He does not speak whatsoever like a politician. He has a vision of what the United States should like, and I think we should give him a chance. We always give chances to politicians to operate, and they mostly failed. I mean, President Obama has failed in many ways. Yes, he's made some things, but on the other hand, I mean, especially foreign policy issues, he is the most failure president I've ever seen and studied in my life. I mean, yes, he did not. You can say he did not pay federal taxes. He did not pay state taxes, etc. But at least he's building the businesses. He's growing. He's a businessman. He would not pay you if he didn't do a good job. We need a true leader that would actually guide you to the right position, to the right choice. I mean, look at Hillary.
You know what else, Mike? You know, regarding his taxes, the thing is, if he's not paying taxes, then how is he being audited? So I think this is just propaganda they're trying to spread through the media, is because he's been audited almost every single year, and and he's not sure why. You know, he said he shows everything, but he's audited every single year.
But also look at the other hand, like Hillary. She makes a lot of promises, which just sound all perfect and great. But then look at these promises she made and look them deeply. I want you to guys go home and search what she really stands for. These things that she's saying is going to allow us to pay more taxes in that. You know, just the party platform itself is just somewhere out of the blue. You know, it looks like they're not even part, you know, of the U.S. Look at how, I mean, disaster can be. Just the way she's saying it sounds separate, but look into it. Look deeper into what she wants. I mean, a lot of them are just for wealthy people, not only for regular middle class that she claims she'll ever grow up. I mean, they just want to focus on the stronger federal government that just stabilize what the people should say. You know, look at the other issue people should consider, and that's a really important issue. It's the Supreme Court. We have a president who's going to be elected to choose our Supreme Court justice.
Very important.
That's a major. I mean, that's alone, that can decide how our legal system is running as. We don't want to see everything to be fine. We want our conservative platform, our conservative views to be applied to those cases. I mean, and it's projected that not only she's picking the person, the number 7 justice, she's also objected to pick probably, if she wins, about 5 Supreme Court judges. That leaves us to 7-2. That's destroying the Republican Party platform. That's destroying what the conservative views are. That's us being behind the background. Look at our morals, what we believe in, what we stand in, what we grew up on. All of a sudden, just get destroyed. I mean, and then not to mention the pro-life. The amount of abortion in our country is hilarious. It's horrifying. It's something that's going above and beyond. I mean, Hillary believes that even a minute before delivery a child, he doesn't consider it to be a constitutional right.
I mean, that's murder. If you're aborting a baby right before, especially you're giving birth, that's murder.
And you know what makes it worse too? Is that she keeps on repeating it. It's not like something she just said and she's rethinking. She's so strong about it. She's so confident about it to the point where she kept on repeating it.
So you're stating she believes in abortion and aborting a baby right before they're born as well? I
mean, that could be a factor. I mean, there was no question, objected to her that way. But
right,
then
she said it's a woman's choice.
It's a woman's choice. We all know that. And there's also one of the most important things I should mention is national security.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, that's also huge in our platform right now.
I really want to elaborate on that, Mike. That topic, very, very detailed. But we want to take our next caller. We have a caller on the phone with a question. Welcome to the show, caller. What is your question?
Hi, I'm again Mahmoud. I have my question. The guy in the control room, he tortured me. His good voice. He said one question. I will say one question.
Great.
But A and B, my question.
Sure.
How come in now America they left the hand of Saudi Arabia? They make all this corruption everywhere in Middle East. And the second of all, your friend he talked about the tax. Okay, if it's about Trump and his businessman, and I know how he care about money, how he agree to take the tax from the citizen American without permission and without the sign for him, because this money tax they going for something successful inside America. And he agreed to give $36 billion for America from the tax money of America for Israel. How? Who gave him this permission and why? Can somebody explain it for me why? Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahmoud. So, Mike, he wants to...
I think, as I understood, he wants to know...
how we're giving so much in donations to Israel?
That's one factor. And then there's another factor he should look at too, the caller, Mr. Mahmoud, that there are so many things that we as normal citizens going to work, coming back from work, school, etc., that we don't know is that, for example, let's say a car company such as Ford or GM, etc. Do you know that every single car that comes out of the United States gets taxed by Mexico, for example? And then on the way, let's say it gets produced or developed over there, on the way back to the U.S., I mean, it's just fine. There's no tax for or anything. Why we're not taxing those corporations just because they're taking their companies outside the United States, building millions of jobs outside the United States, and then we come over here as thinking, okay, this is American-made cars, and we just buy them, and we're actually helping other countries developing. That's one important issue needs to be focused on. I mean, we're paying 60 to 20% in taxes by delivering parts or cars, et cetera, to different countries, but then on the way back, after developing, after paying all those workers or all those plants or all those jobs, we come back here. I mean, it's like, it's okay. Let it go in. It's our home. I mean,
well, Hillary had mentioned that we're 5% of the population of the world, and that we need to do trade with the 95% of all the other countries and the entire world. Of course, I agree we do need to do trade. However, our companies, regardless of which presidential candidate wins, our companies need to stay in America. We are the United States of America. We don't want to see products literally transform from everything in your home to made outside of this country. We have wonderful manufacturers right here in the country that make some of the best products in the world. And we have companies that can literally make anything and everything. But not so many companies need to leave our country. This is devastating our economy. Our economy needs to be the best in the world. And it will not be the best in the world when we're transferring jobs in companies through every single country just so companies can get a tax break, just so companies can save a few dollars. We need to bring jobs back to America. And the only way is to keep them here and tax them. Tax them, tax them, tax them if they decide to leave this country, because that is the only way to bring America back on its feet, and not back on its knees, back on its feet. We're going to take a quick break, and we are honored to have another guest in the show, and I will shortly introduce him. Stay tuned.
Hello, friends. This is Tony Goulet, and it is a blessing to be here on ABN and the Trinity channel. As you know, ABN does vital work. What other channel can you turn to watch international apologetics marathons that are broadcast through satellite to the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, North Africa, parts of the U.S., parts of Canada, and streaming live online through high-speed internet, Facebook, and Twitter? We've asked numerous people throughout these shows this week that we have done, what other channel can you turn to? There is not another channel that you can turn to watch shows like these. We are correct. We're not politically correct. We do debates about what is true. And there are many man-made religions out there who claim to have the truth. People are basing their eternal salvation on what they think is true. But what sets Christianity apart from the man-made religions out there is that Christianity is a reasonable faith based on evidence. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15 commands Christians to always be ready to give a defense or a reason for the hope that lies within us. So these marathons are just an example of what all of us should be doing, regardless of where we are located throughout the world. It is our job as Christians to preach and proclaim the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and defend the historic Christian faith. We are called to do that in our everyday lives, and ABN and Trinity does that during every single International Apologetics Marathon. We share the gospel and we defend the faith. So please continue to support ABN, the Trinity channel, so these shows can continue to reach the lost and equip the found.
Live English debate on Monday, October 17th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time between Shabir Ali versus Tony Costa. The topic will be, was Muhammad a prophet of God? Was Paul a disciple of Jesus? If you have any questions, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
ABM security is in need of your help. The work we do has attracted a lot of opposition that has repeatedly wished us harm, and the measures we had originally taken aren't as effective as we once thought. We need an upgrade to our security system to be more up-to-date to today's standards, and reinforced windows along with thicker doors and locks to make breaking them down a lot more difficult. This isn't an issue anyone likes to talk about, but needs to be addressed. We want to protect our ministry and its employees from serious harm that could be closer than we know. But to do that, we need your support and partnership to make that happen. To donate, call the numbers on your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Praise the Lord, North Carolina. I'm your native son, Pastor Joseph here, inviting you to watch the one TV channel they don't want you to know about, the Trinity channel, channel 14.6, WHKY on digital antenna. Finally, the truth about ISIS, terrorism, and the religion of Islam from a biblical Christian perspective. You'll find no political correctness here, just the truth, plain and simple. Scholars, Christian apologists, and former Muslims from around the world all exposing the religion of Islam as the root of so much of the chaos we find our world in today, while at the same time proclaiming Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, as the one and only solution. If you can't get channel 14.6, don't worry. You can watch us live 24/7 at www.trinitychannel.com. Remember the Trinity channel, the voice of truth crying out in a desert of political correctness.
Welcome back to the Trinity channel. I'm your host, Naharin Nwia, and we have Majizuma with us, political activist. And also, we are so honored to bring a new guest on the show. I would like to introduce him and then greet him. But first and foremost, we have Clint Custo in the show today, and he's state representative for first elected to serve the 39th District in Michigan House of Representatives in November of 2012. Representing the residents of the city of Wixom, Commerce Township, a portion of West Bloomfield Township, and the village of Wolverine Lake. Custo was reelected to a second term for the 2015-2016 legislative session. He was also the former prosecuting attorney for the Wayne County's prosecuting office in Michigan. Thank you so much for being on, Clint. So honored to have you, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
On so many different things.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on here. It's exciting to be here. It's exciting to chat with you, as well as give some information to the viewers.
Absolutely.
It's an exciting time. There's a presidential election here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the state of Michigan, we're moving forward. We're doing great things, but of course, across our country, we'd like to see the same.
Absolutely, Clint. And just knowing just a few things about you, but also many important things, you have been so involved on the front lines for the people. You truly, truly take people's cries. And, we hear about so many politicians that just, they're all words, but I noticed something so unique about you, and you literally do everything you state. And that is so different and is such a valuable asset for politicians. And really, the American people, you need to look at examples like Clint Custo, and you need to make your decisions based on people like this who truly have a core morality and just a common decency to listen to the people's cries, and then portray your actions based on that. Some of the questions I want to ask you, Clint, is what are some of the attributes you feel about each candidate, and what are some of the things that you like about either one of them?
As far as the presidential one?
Yes.
Well, first off, we have a very unique election.
Mm-hmm.
We have, on the one side, on the Democrat side, someone who's been a politician her whole life, mm-hmm. who's been entrenched in politics, mm-hmm. and has made it this far, and is a female candidate, and perhaps could be the first female president. Mm-hmm. On the other side, you have an outsider. You have Donald Trump, who beat 17 others in the primary for the Republican nomination. He's mm-hmm. a business owner. Mm-hmm. And he's not entrenched in politics. Mm-hmm. So when you look at those two things, you have two very different individuals. Mm-hmm. Then you look at the individuals themselves. Okay, you have the negatives. You have the Hillary Clintons, the email scandals, the way the problem with what happened with her husband, mm-hmm. the rigging of the system with Bernie Sanders, mm-hmm. the emails that have been deleted. the past issues with Benghazi, the denial of it all, this collusion in terms of the politics that people are very untrustful of to begin with. On the other side, you have Donald Trump, a businessman, successful, but he has had some failures, minimal failures in his business. He's been very crude and crass. He says it like it is. He speaks off the cuff. He's had past issues that have just came to light in terms of his comments about women, which I do not endorse or condone. And you have those two candidates. And even before that, you had the negatives of the candidates in terms of polling, at least in the area I represent, that are so high. It's a matter of who's the person that you would not want to vote for, and I'm going to vote for the other person.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. It's very disappointing. It's very, very disappointing. However, these are our choices. These are our choices, and we have to stand firm in terms of what the future of our country will be, what the future of the United States will be. And that's where each individual needs to be able to dig deep within themselves to get beyond what these two individuals have had in their past. And if they appreciate the policies of the Democrat Party and the policies of Hillary Rodham Clinton and her past, then that would be their candidate. On the other hand, if they want a fresh new start to our country, if they believe that we need change, if they believe that we need a businessman who can come in that can say our $19 trillion worth of debt in the United States and take that and change it, our $100 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities, and something we can change. If that's the idea that you want, if that's the approach of securing borders, as the rhetoric is, of creating jobs, of making sure jobs stay in the United States and don't leave. We were from the Metro Detroit area in Michigan here, and we have seen it firsthand that jobs have left. And we continue to see it firsthand. And but for the policies of the state of Michigan itself in terms of getting rid of regulations and changing the tax structure, it would be even worse. But we have to look at the country as a whole. And if that's the model, then Donald Trump is that individual's candidate. And so it's very interesting this year because we have these two candidates that no one seems to like. It's the lesser of two evils.
Right.
It's, I don't want to vote for Hillary, so I'm voting for Trump. And I don't want to vote for Trump, so I'm voting for Hillary. Or maybe I'm not voting. But I encourage everybody out there that you have to vote.
Right.
You have to go out and vote.
Right. Some people truly believe that they're gambling, that, it's either we're going to have a huge loss or it may actually just work out for everyone. But very well said, Clint. A question for you, Mike. What makes some of the Republican Party officials take away their endorsement from Trump?
I think at a national level, I think the party is not dividing, but it's making its way where it's becoming divided, sort of. I mean, we have Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. I mean, he took his hands out of Trump completely, and I don't. As much as I like Paul Ryan himself, I think that what he did was kind of wrong for the party, because at the end of the day, those are two major parties. They're fighting each other, and I think the people look at parties where what they stand for. I mean, I'm one of the people that I chose a party based on what I believe in, what my stance, how I grew up, how I stand for. And I think that taking endorsements from Trump are not the best choice for a party candidate or elected official, simply because by choosing, you're kind of the people who support, like, let's say, for example, I'm throwing an example out there, John McCain or Mitt Romney or supportive of himself, Paul Ryan himself. People look at those as an example. Those are elected officials already. People have chosen to these positions. So look at them as an example to see who they endorse so they can endorse moving forward for the party. And I think what they're doing is dividing the party instead of helping themselves. So I don't recommend not endorsing as a single candidate just simply because of a past video, which I'm not a big supporter of at all. I'm not at all supportive of the video that came out. But then look at the other hand. Look at the emails that just from WikiLeaks of Hillary are not pleasant either. So here we're not making a choice of either party, but then you have to look of who you support and who is your next president. And then he said it as best, Representative Clint earlier, that we should look at our morals and what we want to see for America. Is it a new businessman? Is it somebody that been all their life politicians? You have to look at these aspects to be able to actually choose.
Right, Mike. And, you know, as an American, what confuses me the most, and this is a question for both, is how can someone, if truly, truly she breached our security or could have been breached through these emails, how can someone that deleted 33,000 emails legally in the United States government be able to run for the president of this country? Clint.
Well, I don't want to get on a rant about the untruthfulness, the lies, the scandals that come into play with the emails. But frankly, we should all be concerned. Government needs to be transparent. In the state of Michigan, I had bills that were signed into law that makes government more transparent. And here we have someone who has been a part of the system, who has been the First Lady, who has been a senator, who has been the Secretary of State, who should know, and she's an attorney, and she should know what classified means, what destroying evidence means, what deleting emails means. And, you know, Director Comey from the FBI, with all due respect to him, he took something and basically said, well, you know, she did it, but she didn't really know she was doing it. First off, she did know. And second off, the law says she didn't even need to know. Okay? As long as she did it, that was criminal.
Right,
but
she
that
didn't
being
know that
said,
the C meant classified. Do you believe that?
I don't. And look, she's an attorney, First Lady, Senator, former Secretary of State.
Right.
It's negligent and beyond negligent.
And she said a lot of the emails had to do with her family regarding a few showers and a few family events.
And they were 33,000 email. And the people of the United States are relying on government being transparent. And that's the problem. That is the problem with why we have people have such a distaste for politicians, especially in Washington, and a distrust. And it's all coming to light now. And it's unfortunate and it's disappointing. And,
Very well said.
and we look at that and we say, okay, who should be our commander-in-chief? Where do we want our country to go? And you look at platforms, and Mike spoke about it, and you really have to look at platforms and see where do you want to go? You have Hillary Clinton saying things like, well, I have a position for the general public, and then I have a position for my donors. I mean, this is something that is concerning, especially somebody who's in charge of our country, in charge of the free world.
And Clint, I did pick up on a lot of her careful verbiage towards her donors. It was very indirect, but she kept mentioning that we need to be very careful with the people we're allying with. And it was almost like for someone to speak that way, you're obviously getting millions of dollars for them to silence you and actually speak about them during your debates to your country, to your American people. But yes, she definitely numerously mentioned, you know, that these are our allies and we have to work with these people and, you know, we have to work with these countries we're doing trade with when Donald Trump was mentioning the national security of our country. So then she mentioned the trade and it's like, well, we understand why this is happening.
And look at the policies, right? The past 8 years, we have the lowest growth in about 40 years in terms of GDP. We have the lowest workforce. Among minority populations, specifically African Americans, you have a higher amount on government assistance. You have a higher amount of Americans on government assistance overall. The debt continues to rise. Long-term unfunded liabilities continue to rise exponentially. And yet, we're looking at this and saying, well, we're doing okay. I'm not sure about that. Our borders are unsecure. The people in our country are worried about what's going on. There have been internal terrorist acts. Outside of our country, things are going on, whether it's in Russia, whether it's the leverage that they're using, whether it's the Chinese who continue to grow and continue to get stronger, and we continue to borrow money from them. Whether you look at the Middle East and Iran continuing to grow and probably having nuclear proliferation, North Korea expanding their program, missiles are being fired at our ships in the Middle East, ISIS is out of control, and yet we're here in the United States and this isn't a topic. These are topics. Donald Trump mentions them. Hillary Clinton tries to push them to the side. And unfortunately, we never get to the politics and the policies. Okay? Well, I mean, we never get to the policies. We're stuck in the politics. We have the issue of this tape that was recorded. Terrible. It's terrible. It doesn't represent me as a Republican. It doesn't represent my ideology, my philosophy, the way I treat women, the way I respect women. I'm a father of a daughter. I'm married to my beautiful wife. I have a mother. I have 2 sisters. You're my sister. And it's not something that I condone. It's not something that I appreciate, nor do I want to hear. But at the same time, we have to get to the politics of our country. There's a lot more at stake. A lot more, the future of our children, the safety of our people, the budget, the national debt. And yet we can never get through this nonsense. And I think we need to. And I think we need to get to the heart of the issues. Where are you, Hillary Clinton, going to take our country over the next 4 years? Where are you, Donald Trump, going to take our country over the next 4 years? Are we going to be safe? Are we going to have jobs? Are our children's future going to be brighter? Are race relations going to be better? We had our first African American president. You would think that race relations would get better, but unfortunately, the policies have created and exacerbated the tension between what's going on, and especially for our law enforcement officers who risk their lives every single day. Every single day, they put on a uniform and go out there to serve and protect you and I, and guess what? Our families.
Absolutely.
And yet there's been attack on our men and women in blue and our law enforcement officers, and it's a real shame. And we need to turn this country around. I'm afraid for where we're going, which route we're going.
Absolutely. Very well said, Clint. And really, Americans should see what other police officers are like in other countries. I mean, let anybody dare to do or say anything to them. They'll have them on the floor in 3 seconds. Question for you, Mike. If Trump becomes president, what do you think would be his main priorities?
I think that if Trump becomes a president, as he speaks all the time, his priorities will be building a wall, trying to develop our country. But also, if you look at a bigger picture, we have more important things to focus on, which he's aware of, I think, such as taking ISIS out of our hometown, that's being destroying everything it's possibly or around it or comes its own way. We have also a big issue that Representative Clint mentioned and then you earlier too, national security. I mean, this is our main concern. Yes, I believe in refugees coming in. Probably some of my relatives came in as refugees here because of the crisis that happens in Iraq and how they were discriminated against their religions. But also we look at Hillary believes that national security it matters obviously, but it's not a huge issue in our nation today. And I think it's one of the most important things because of what's happening in ISIS and around the country. Look at Germany, look at the Western countries. They're having threats almost daily that we maybe don't hear about in the news. And then how much can be affected by it? A lot. That I think if he becomes a president, I think he would focus on national security more. Maybe I don't 100% agree with the wall itself, and maybe it will never get done anyways. But the thing is, we have to focus on things that are securing more, putting more pressure towards people to come in, simply because we want to be secure, we want to have a good life, we want to be able to actually go out there in a safe environment. I mean, I lived in both, safe and unsafe environment. The amount of danger that you can put yourself into, it's unbelievable. I mean, you are either getting back home or never. And then people like Representative Clinton have kids, has a wife at home, and this is a real issue. This is a real matter that people should focus on the new election. So I think national security is his priority, and I think he'll do a good job. versus
Right. And,
Hillary.
A lot of people, they attack Trump when he says, we don't want to accept illegal immigrants. Truly, which country in the world takes in illegal immigrants like there's no tomorrow? I mean, any country would be against illegal immigrants. We're not against immigrants, and I feel like the media really steers that and tries to, alter his words. But we, as American people, whether you are Republican or Democrat, should be against illegal immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself. My family left Iraq because of our safety. We literally had to flee, and just like many Christians from Iraq have to do. Because of the constant failed foreign policies of the United States and other countries. But we don't want to be against immigrants. We are against illegal immigrants. When you have illegal immigrants that are coming in, also, even some immigrants, if they're not vetted correctly, it takes 3 days to forge their identification and paperwork in Syria and the rest of the countries. So there are people that have the machinery, that they have the people, the equipment and everything to make their entire file, and they're sending them off. And guess what? It's already proven that there are quite a few ISIS leaders that have crossed through the borders. They're in Europe. Their main target and their end point is the United States because they truly want revenge. And, it's just, we want America to be what it stands for. It is the biggest melting pot in the world, but we want the safety of our country, the national security that will affect every single family, whether you are Christian, whether you are Muslim, whether you are Jewish, whether you are of any identity and race. It truly, truly will affect everyone. How do you feel about that, Clint?
Well, the bottom line is that we have an immigration policy that is very broad. You can come in through the traditional methods of immigration and resettlement. You can come in as a refugee. You can come into the country and seek asylum. You can come into the country through a work visa. You can come into the country through a visitor's visa. You can come into the country through a education visa. The question is the illegal immigration, as he stated. And let's be honest here. It's illegal immigration. We don't talk about any other crime as there's illegal stealing.
Right.
And there's illegal tax evasion, and that's okay.
Right.
And there's illegal theft, and that's okay. And there's illegal taking of property, and that's okay. And there's murder, which is illegal, but we can find a way to say it's okay. No. Once it's a crime, we're a nation of laws. We're a nation of laws, and we have to abide by those laws. And frankly, the policies of immigration need to be structured. And people need to know that we are here as a nation of laws that will enforce laws. And when folks come in, we have to have the proper vetting, especially with what's going on across the country and across the world. Now you look at even a Democrat-controlled and appointed director through the FBI who says, look, we cannot vet our immigrants. We just cannot. We don't have the resources. And yet we continue to spend on everything else except national security. And you spoke a little bit about the Trump policies, but let's look at what policies are important to us as Americans, at least to me. At least to me. And I sit as a state representative, and I represent the people in the state of Michigan and from a certain area. And I look at our Constitution in terms of the First Amendment, of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And yet we continue to have that dismantled and trounced upon. And you look at the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms and your right to defend yourself. And yet the government continues to take property from individuals and to disarm them and to avoid even dealing with that amendment. And you have your search and seizure issues and your privacy laws. And yet the government wants to continue to invade on your privacy. And then you have the most important, not the most important, one of them is the 10th Amendment that says if it's not enumerated in this Constitution, the rights go back to the state. And yet, our federal government continues to expand and continue to take taxpayers' money and continue to spend that money and continue to go into debt. And when you ask Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, well, what do you plan on this issue or that issue? I continually hear from Donald Trump issues that aren't of national security, foreign policy, borders. Those issues belong to the state. And yet Hillary Clinton says we're going to expand government. Let's be clear, when you expand government, this is an invasion into our individual liberties and our individual rights. These rights are not written down on paper and made by man. These rights are granted to us by God. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without government intrusion. This is the whole structure of our country. And yet an expanded government policy, and that's why myself as a Republican, I believe in these conservative values of less government and less taxes and allowing people with their freedoms and their liberties, as long as they're not obstructing and intruding on someone else's, to have the right to be able to do what they want, to have the right to be able to do what they want with their own money, to be able to be entrepreneurs, to be able to be whatever they want to be in life, despite what their parents are and what their parents' jobs were. And that is the benefit and the value of our country of freedom. My father came as an immigrant. My father was a grocer. My brother is an orthopedic surgeon. I'm an attorney. I'm in politics. My sister's a nurse. My other one does marketing. You're educated. You're educated. Your parents came as immigrants. And this is why our country is so great. And yet, when we have government coming in and saying, putting their thumbprint down on you and saying, you are going to do this or this, and this is how we're going to have you do it, that becomes a problem. And that is the fundamental difference between the two parties. And also, regardless of the two personalities, the two candidates, is having a larger government, spending more, not offering more opportunities, but maintaining the status quo as we've had today, or something different. Someone who says, we're going to give these issues back to the states for each state to determine. We're going to reduce the tax rate to allow individuals to have more money in their pocket, and guess what? Start more businesses, create more jobs, and spend more money. Ronald Reagan reduced the tax rate on the top tier. And guess what? There ended up being more money in the budget, the federal budget, and that's because more people spent money and created more jobs. And this is the policy of the conservative candidates and the Republicans versus on the Democrat side.
Very well said, Clint. As an activist and being a median between our native people in the Middle East and in the United States, where I'm based, a lot of Christians ask me, and they're very, very concerned from the Middle East, is where is our future? So regardless of which president wins, what is going to happen to us, and who will be the best president to win for the Christians in Iraq, who have been a constant tool and constant victims to the American failed foreign policies. And the reason why we're almost facing an extinction is because of the issues that the former presidents and the American policies have caused, that has completely almost annihilated an entire race, going from millions to less than 300,000 native people who have literally lived in Iraq for over 6,500 years. That's very sad. And as the American people, they really need to understand that this decision will affect an entire race, and not only race, but the entire Christian religion in the Middle East. And how should we answer, and this question is to both of you, how should I and other activists and just people in general answer these people and let them know and assure them that something will be done for them? And who do you feel in your hearts, with everything to the side, that will fight for them, and who will actually, there's something that we're politically going for, and there's a resolution for it, 152, but it's to create a Nineveh province for the minorities and especially the Christians of Iraq, a province that will help protect them. They will have their own governing body, their own military, and they need someone, a presidential candidate, a president that will support that, because it seems like even, a lot of presidential candidates in the past, and just a lot of politicians, and, coming from DC, where I try to lobby as much as I can for people, I hear the same slogans of fund, arm the wrong people, funding the Kurdish Muslims, funding the Arab Muslims, arming them, but no one really said to fund the Christians or arm the Christians or do something for them. So how do you feel about that?
Well, frankly, we've had 8 years of this policy, exactly what you're talking about. Okay. And we look at what has happened. Nothing. In fact, it's gotten worse. So the question is, will there be anything better from someone who was the head of all foreign relations, being the Secretary of State, who had an opportunity to make change with such power and being a part of the administration? So frankly, if Hillary Clinton's the president, I don't see much changing. Donald Trump says he'll eliminate ISIS and he'll destroy them. I think that's good rhetoric. It's good to hear. I'd like to see the action. We all say that. I think throughout the country it resonates to destroy ISIS because of their atrocities. But it's not just that. It's dealing with the corruption. It's dealing with the corruption in the Middle East. We've sent tons of money to the Middle East. It's been siphoned off into individuals' pockets. And yet, again, we look at some of the things in our country in terms of similar politics being played. And it's with one of the candidates. Of having corruption. Of saying we came out broke from the White House and now they are getting paid speeches from Saudi kings and Wall Street and investors and millionaires. I mean, it begs the question, doesn't it? It begs the question if you want status quo or not. And that's what I go back to. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump. And frankly, his rhetoric is disgusting. It is. The rhetoric towards women is disgusting. But we look at policies, real policies, and the American people and the people across the world. And you say, what is going to become of these individuals? Are we going to have the same for another 4 to 8 years? Or at least are we going to change something and to stop the corruption, to stop ISIS, to stop the radical terrorists, to stop people being subject to genocide?
Right, and even Muslims keep stating, stop ISIS. But I feel like in her speeches and all of her rallies, she's constantly bringing up Muslims, you're offending Muslims. But it's like Muslims themselves are stating, we need to remove ISIS. You need to stop ISIS. We need to do whatever we can to stop ISIS. And, she goes off on the bandwagon of, you're offending Muslims. It's like, no one is offending Muslims. Muslims themselves are telling you the same things.
Look, ISIS is offending everyone.
Exactly.
They offend women. They offend every religion that isn't theirs.
They're throwing
they
homosexuals off the buildings.
I mean, this is ridiculous when it comes to children, women, families, religion, people of certain religious beliefs, homosexuals. And yet, no one is saying, hey, destroy these individuals. They are attacking our country here at home. They are infiltrating our people here and converting them to their beliefs of radical terrorists. They are doing the same thing in the Middle East, not only affecting Christians now, but they've gone beyond that to affect other Muslims. Someone needs to stand up. And it really takes someone with some guts who's willing to think outside the box, who doesn't owe anyone anything, And frankly, to make sure that people are safe across the world, because this conduct is unacceptable. In 1915, there was the genocide of the Armenian people. We said, oh, we need to stop this. Okay. We have the Holocaust. We have a phrase called never again.
Right.
And
even
yet,
our people, Historian people,
After that,
Thousands.
thousands of our people, thousands of everyone, all kinds of people. Then later, you have the Rwandan genocide in Darfur and others. And then in 2014, 15, 16, now you have the Christians in the Middle East being subject to a genocide. When we say never again, we should really mean it. And people who believe that should stand up for it. In the state of Michigan, I introduced a law that has our children be taught about what a genocide is.
That's wonderful.
Including the Armenian
Give me five
genocide
for
and
that.
including the Holocaust. And the reason we do that is so that when today it happens, people, the young, know about it. Abraham Lincoln said, let's teach our youth so we don't have to teach our adults. And this is what I'm getting to, is that there are certain policies that are failed. There are failed policies. They're failing all of us. And we need to change. And we need to change in terms of foreign policy. We're weak. We're weak. If we have in the Middle East, and our ships are being struck by missiles, and missiles are being sent over at them, I mean, people must think that we're soft. And we need to get back to the point of saying, look, we're the United States of America. We're the strongest country. We have the strongest economy. We have the greatest people in the world. We have freedom in our country. And our military will protect us, and they'll be there to protect our freedoms. Our military was there because our men and women protect our constitutional rights, especially our freedoms. And now even the military, they are saying we don't have the resources that we need.
Right. That's
We don't
very
have the
sad.
backing that we have, that we need. And the same thing internally, in terms of our law enforcement. And what we need is strong individuals, strong representatives. And we need to get their personalities out of the way.
Right.
And look, it's disappointing that we have these two candidates that have come up that have the highest negatives and the highest unfavorability.
Right.
But
I
these
feel
are
like
our
their
two
debates
choices.
were all just insult. Let's insult each
Let's
other.
get to
Like
the
debate
policies.
was just insulting
let's
each
get
other.
to the policies.
Right.
And frankly, the Middle East needs to step up too.
Oh yeah.
You know, they can talk and they can say, hey, you know, we want to get rid of them, but we just can't. They need to step up, because I know for a fact that there are dollars, U.S. dollars, our taxpayer money, going to Iraq, and people were siphoning off the top, if not siphoning all of it, and leaving the people stranded with their hands up saying, when are we going to get some help from our government that is corrupt? And
Very
that's
strong
unfair to
words,
them.
Clint. Very good.
I just want to have an insight. I think that we gave Hillary a chance by serving as the Secretary of State from the
Right.
previous, and I think she took her chance by showing us what she can do at a big office like that, and then she failed. And I don't think so. We cannot afford giving somebody else a second chance. We're in tough situations around the world, in the U.S. mainly, and I think that Donald Trump should have a better chance of winning, or should have a better chance of winning, simply to at least show us what can he do to turn the country around to a better place, hopefully. I think that electing Hillary won't solve the issue in any way, neither inside or outside the United States. I think that it's just going to make the problem even worse. And I think that by electing hopefully Trump, that will lead us to something better. We're not sure, but all I'm sure about that Hillary is being bought by the Saudis and Qatar and Bahrain and all those countries.
Right, and she's admitted.
That's what we're sure. She proved that to us by what she says, by what we saw in our eyes, and by what happened in the not long ago in 2011 and 12 and previous years as her being in the office. So I think that we should give a chance to somebody else in this case.
Right. And Mike, so let's say Hillary does get elected. A lot of people are saying it's already picked by the establishment. It's probably already going to happen. She's probably going to somehow win. So let's say she wins. What do you think the American people need to do to protect ourselves here and to even protect our brothers and sisters that are being massacred in thousands in Iraq and Syria?
First, I would like to say that whoever...
And what would you say to her?
Sure. I mean, I think whoever is going to win this election, it won't be more than 4 years. I think the maximum they're going to have is it's one term, and I think that's going to be, hopefully, it will be done in a peaceful way as possible. I think if she gets elected, Donald Trump woke up a certain group of people that they never had the right to actually show anything that they wanted to show or see. And I think that by him waking up this group of people, a certain group of people, by her getting in office or getting elected, is not going to be just fine, okay, we're going to live with it. I think it's going to be more into it. I think there's people that are going to be outraged sort of towards what happened. I think people want real answers of how she got elected, because we've seen in the past where sometimes numbers can play between state to state, and I think the American people should be more into this election and find out how things will work or how things are deeply set. I'm not saying we are playing with numbers or not believing in our voting system. I think we have the best voting system ever. But I think that the American people gonna have a different opinion or different insight as who we elect. And from a previous experience in voting, I mean, Representative Clinton can say the best about how the American people should react or would react on whoever gets elected.
And I would really advise the American people to get really close with your politicians. You know, speak to them, meet them, really get to know them instead of just hearing whatever they're saying for their 5 minutes or their 1 hour during a debate. Really get to know them and learn about them, do your research, and that is the best way to know your politicians. And I want to thank my wonderful guests here today, Mike and Clint, and God bless you in your efforts, you know, to protect our people, especially Clint being an elected official. You know, we stand with you, and please always look for his name and vote for him and people like him, people that have a strong core and value to protect the American people and really, you know, have a touching heart to feel your cry. The people that many politicians don't actually do. And before we end the show, you know, I want to give you your last words to the American people and also our allies that are watching throughout the world.
I would thank you, Nahran, and thank you, Representative Clint, and thank you for watching. It's been great. All I can, as final statement, I would say, look at the candidates, look at the platforms, look at both parties, what you stand for, vote who you believe is going to make a difference, not the same exact thing that we've been through in the past 8 years. Just try to choose the candidate that fits you the most. And I would like to say also, vote for Representative Clint for the 39th District. He is the greatest choice we can have.
Well, for me, it's truly an honor and a privilege to serve as state representative in the 39th District in the state of Michigan and the area that I represent. And when I look at what I'm going to do, I look at moving Michigan forward and not looking at failed policies, but changing those failed policies. In Michigan, we were in a tough spot. We had a lost decade where we lost jobs. Our unemployment rate was 13%. Our government was sustainable for about 35 minutes. But we had a new administration come in, and we had a change. And what we've seen now is 450,000 new jobs, unemployment rate under 5%. Population is growing, higher per capita income in our state. And if you look around the Midwest, in Wisconsin and Ohio and Indiana, similar results. But if you look at Illinois, not so much. Wisconsin, Republican governor and Republican legislature, and Ohio the same, and Indiana the same, and Michigan. And we're states that are rebounding from a recession, especially in Michigan, a depression. So this is an opportunity for you to look inside yourself and say, where do I want my country to go? We've had these policies. Do you want the same policies? Do you want different policies? And this is an opportunity for you to be able to make a change, because that's what every vote is. Every vote is your voice. Every vote is your ability to make a change. Every vote is your voice that can be heard, that can make a difference not only for you and your family, but for your children and grandchildren and those across the world. And I want to thank you again, Nahran, for inviting me on here. It was very engaging and exciting conversation, and we're going to see what happens over the next 20-something days. And hopefully our country moves in the right direction. Hopefully our national security is shored up. our foreign policy moves in the right direction, our domestic policy is on the right track to create more jobs, to bring jobs back to our country. And I look forward to really just serving the people. And even if my candidate or our country starts moving in the wrong direction, it's up to each and every one of us to make sure that politics is local, that we can reach out and touch our politicians and our representatives and say, here is the change that we want, and get it done. And if they don't, well, there's going to be another election. And that's the value and the greatness of our country, is that freedom and that ability. And again, thanks to all the viewers, and thank you very much. And thank you, Mike, for being on the show and being a great advocate for all of the issues and for all of your advocacy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Clint, and thank you, Mike. And it's been such a passionate show and such a real show, a show that should touch every heart of Americans. And Americans really need to take this presidential election very serious and pray. Pray to God to lead you in the right path, and do your research, and also worry about your brothers and sisters in the United States, and don't forget your brothers and sisters, especially the persecuted church in Iraq and Syria, that are literally depending on this very election of what will happen to their very lives. And like Clint and Mike mentioned, our national security is at risk. We as Americans must do whatever we can to protect our children right here within our borders. We cannot allow the same things to happen in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, to what's happening in the Middle East, to what's happening in the Western countries, places like France and England, just falling apart one after one. They're literally becoming a minority. Something that happened to our native people, even in the Middle East, went from the majority to the minority, and that is very likely to happen right here in the United States, believe it or not. Thank you so much for watching the Trinity Channel. Please visit www.trinitychannel.com to find out more information. And also, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will have many, many more shows to come, especially regarding this very interesting presidential election. God bless, and thank you for watching.
Hello, friends. This is Tony Goulet, and it is a blessing to be here on ABN and the Trinity Channel. As you know, ABN does vital work. What other channel can you turn to watch international apologetics marathons that are broadcast through satellite to the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, North Africa, parts of the U.S., parts of Canada, and streaming live online through high-speed internet, Facebook, and Twitter? We've asked numerous people throughout these shows this week that we have done, what other channel can you turn to? There is not another channel that you can turn to watch shows like these. We are correct. We're not politically correct. We do debates about what is true. And there are many man-made religions out there who claim to have the truth. People are basing their eternal salvation on what they think is true. But what sets Christianity apart from the man-made religions out there is that Christianity is a reasonable faith based on evidence. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15 commands Christians to always be ready to give a defense or a reason for the hope that lies within us. So these marathons are just an example of what all of us should be doing, regardless of where we are located throughout the world. It is our job as Christians to preach and proclaim the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and defend the historic Christian faith. We are called to do that in our everyday lives, and ABN and Trinity does that during every single international apologetics marathon. We share the gospel and we defend the faith. So please continue to support ABN